Today's daf we're going to be learning is Masechet Chullin daf tet. It's the daf for Shabbat. We're going to get started from Rav Yehuda Amar Rav in the beginning of the page. So second line. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. So Rav Yehuda says in the name of Rav, Tamich Chacham tzarich sheyilmod shlosha dvarim. Tamich Chacham needs to learn three things. Okay, already this sounds surprising, doesn't it? Tamich Chacham needs to learn lots more than three things. So right, a Torah scholar. So what we're really going to understand is sheyilmod means practice three things. There's three things that you're not going to get unless you practice them. One is ktav, writing. We'll get back to this one. Shechita, slaughtering. And mila, brit milah. Okay, brit milah and slaughtering you can understand. You need to practice. You're not going to get good unless you practice. Right? It's a very specific talent. Writing, okay, we all know how to write, but remember, in those days they didn't all know how to write. Rashi says, what are we talking about by writing? Simply to write. Rashi says, "Sheyadalach tom shmos." You'll know how to sign your name in case you have to be, Rashi says, a witness or a judge. So there's an assumption that a Torah scholar might have to testify, might have to be a judge, and they'll need to sign their name. Other commentaries say that we're talking about writing like stam, like how to do calligraphy, how to do sefer Torah, mezuzah, tefillin, okay, those things. Other people say it's to learn the language of the shtarot, what's supposed to go in the shtar, what's supposed to be written in a document, in a halachic document. Okay, so there's all different possibilities, or maybe even a sales document, okay, but what the proper language is supposed to be. So different opinions about what this actually means. Rav Chanania bar Shlemia mishmei de Rav. So now we have a different opinion about what Rav said. Amal av kesher shel tefillin or berakhot chatanim v'tzitzit. Okay, also how to tie the tefillin. We mean to make that dalid, right? We have the shin at the top and then the dalid and then there's a yud. How to do the dalid. Uberchat chatanim, to know the sheva berakhot that we say under the chuppah or at sheva berakhot occasions. Now, some people think this means you should know them by heart. Some people think you should know how to sing them properly. Okay, but the berakhot chatanim and tzitzit, how to tie your tzitzit. Okay, so he thinks that some yachamim have to practice those things as well. V'idach. So now, why didn't the first opinion, Rav Yehuda, why didn't he think that that's what Rav said? Hani shchichan. He said those are things, the last three are done all the time. Everybody knows them. So you don't need to practice because it's just known by everybody. Okay, that's the first statement. Our second statement for today is also Rav Yehuda. This time Rav Yehuda is going to say in the name of Shmuel. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Kol tabach she'ino yodeh hilchot shechita asur le'echol mishchitato. If you have a slaughterer who doesn't know the laws of shechita, you can't eat from a shechita, okay? You have to know the laws of shechita. You can't just slaughter without knowing all the laws. Now, what are these laws you need to know? Elu henochot shechita. And we're going to talk about the 5 things that disqualify shechita. Shehiyah, that's waiting in between the slaughtering, the cutting of the 2 simanim, the esophagus and the trachea, waiting the amount of time it takes you to slaughter an animal. So if you wait the amount of time it takes to slaughter an animal in between the 2 simanim, the cutting of the 2 simanim, you disqualify the offering. Drasa. Okay, what's drasa? That's if you chop off the head like in one motion as opposed to a back and forth motion. But instead you go, slaughter, like chop it, kind of like chop it rather than go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Chalada. This is when, like a chulda, like a mole that sneaks into a hole. So if you put the knife in under the skin, in between the simanim, and then cut outward, or under both simanim and cut outward, okay, or something like that, where the knife goes inside first, disqualified. Hagrama. Okay, hagrama is when you, I just forgot that's halada. Hagrama is when you move the knife to a different place, okay, where you move it a little bit upwards of where you're supposed to be, and you're not in the right spot. So you do the cutting of the 2 simanim, but not in the spot where you're supposed to be doing it, and ikur. Okay, ikur, there's also many different opinions. Tosfot claims that what you did is you cut it with a knife that had nicks in it, and therefore the nicks in the knife killed the animal first, and then by the time you slaughtered it, it was already dead. Some people think ikur is like to uproot, that you uproot the simanim, you took them out by hand first, or you pulled them out before you actually slaughtered them. Okay, some sort of uprooting of something, not exactly clear what there's a whole bunch of other possibilities. In any case, we have these 5 disqualifications of slaughtering. So that's, according to Rav Yehuda, in the name of Shmuel, that's what everybody needs to know if you're going to do slaughtering. Okay, you have to know those 5 halachot. So my kamash, that's the first thing. Why is he teaching us this? What the 5 hilchot shechita are? Kulu tanino. Okay, we already learned them. Well, we didn't yet, but we're going to see them all upcoming. That they all appear in the Mishnayot. So why is Shmuel telling us this? Lo tzricha sheshachat lefanenu shnayim v'shalosh pa'amim v'shachat shapir. What Shmuel's trying to say is, what if somebody comes and does 2 or 3 slaughterings and they happen to do a great job and the slaughtering was perfect? Ma'u detema mid'idach shachat shapir hainami shachat shapir. You might say, well, look, they did 2 or 3 slaughterings. It's great, right? This is what you call a chazaka. At this point, you have a chazaka that you know how to slaughter. And, right, so you might think that you can then go ahead and slaughter other animals. But since you don't know the halachot, it happens to, you got lucky, a beginner's luck. It went well, but what if you don't know that you can't wait in between? You might next time wait in between. So without knowing the halachot, we don't allow you to slaughter. The Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, another thing that Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel. Hatabach tzarich sheyivdok b'simanim. The tabach needs to check the simanim. Okay, he needs to check that it was properly slaughtered. So now they say la'achar shechita, after shechita. Amar Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef is going to now try to prove this. Af ananami tanina. He's going to say, oh, you can find this in a Mishnah as well. Because Rabbi Shimon, who disagrees with what we said before about shehiyah, that shehiyah is the time it takes to slaughter an animal, Rabbi Shimon says, this is on Daf Lamed Bet, Omer im shaha kedei bikol. Okay, the amount of shehiyah is the time to check. Check what? If not, to check the simanim. My love, kedei bikor simanim. Is it not to check the simanim? If it's to check the simanim, then what do you see here? It obviously is a critical element of the slaughtering, is to check the simanim. If the amount of time of shehiyah is the amount of time you have to wait until you to check the simanim, then that obviously is an important part of the shechita. So Amar le Abaye lo. He says, no. Hachi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. This is the way Rabbi Yochanan explained that Mishnah, and this Mishnah doesn't prove it. Now, it doesn't mean it's not true that you have to check the simanim, right? You have to check that the simanim were properly slaughtered, but it's not proven from the Mishnah. Because Rabbi Yochanan says the bikur is not checking the simanim, it's kedei bikur chacham. It's the amount of time it takes to go show your knife to a chacham. Why do you have to show the knife to a chacham? To make sure it has no nicks in it, so you can use it for your next slaughtering. So it's the amount of time it would take you to go to the chacham. And that's shehiyah according to Rabbi Shimon, which is kind of ridiculous, because what kind of time is that? If I live 5 blocks away from the chacham, and someone else lives 20 blocks away, and someone else lives next door, right? So the Gemara says, this is not a shiur. You can't say, what's the shiur of shehiyah, the time it takes someone to go to the chacham and show him the knife. First of all, you don't have to show the chacham the knife, but Rashi says you have to show it to the chacham Iyar because of the kavod of the chacham. Okay, because of respect for the chachamim, you have to go show them your knife. But anyway, the point is, for everyone it's a different amount. We need to come up with an amount of time that shehiyah is. How long is it? You're going to disqualify a sacrifice, shechita. If they broke in between the 2 simanim, they took a break that was long enough that someone who takes 20 minutes, someone takes 1 minute. That's not a good answer. So now we're back to saying, so what does it mean kedei bikur? If it's not bikur simanim, and it's not bikur chacham, so ella, we're going to basically change minorly the last explanation. Ella kedei bikur tabach chacham. We're talking about if you have a tabach who knows what he's doing. He's a chacham himself, and he's the one who's slaughtering, and he checks the knife. That's the amount of time of shehiyah, according to Rabbi Shimon, which means you check your own knife. Lo badak mai. Now, what if you didn't check the simanim? So Rabbi Shimon says you have to check the simanim, right? Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, you have to check the simanim. What if you didn't? So it says here, right? We're going to have a machlok. Rabbi Eliezer ben Tuginus, Mishum Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yanai, Amal treifa v'asura b'achila. He says it's like a treifa, right? It's like an animal that was sick and was supposed to die. You can't eat it. B'manita tan in a bright it says neveila umatama b'masa. It's actually like a neveila, and it's mitame, okay, it carries impurity. A neveila is just an animal that dies on its own or isn't slaughtered properly. So, it's one of the two. A treifa, then it's not mitame, but both are forbidden to eat. But the question is it mitame or not? Does it pass on impurity to other things? B'mai kamiflige. So what's the root of their machloket? I'm going to say they disagree about b'di Rav Huna. That's something Rav Huna says, and how they each understood it a little bit differently, or how to apply it in this case. Da'amar, Rav Huna said the following: Behema b'chayeha b'chazkat isur omedet ad shivadalach L'cha b'met nishchita. An animal is alive, okay? When an animal's alive, it's definitely forbidden. You can't eat it. It's aver min achai, right? It's taking a piece from a live animal. Now, it's going to stay that way, forbidden, until when? Not until you slaughter it, but until you know that it was slaughtered properly. But nishchita, once it's slaughtered properly, harehi b'chazkat hatil. Once you know it was slaughtered properly, then you know we can assume it's permitted, unless you somehow find out later, right, by opening up the animal and realizing there was a hole in one of the important organs or something like that. So something that would make it a treifa, then when you find out, okay, but until then you assume it's permitted, until such time that you find that it's a treifa. So now we're going to really focus on the first part, which is when it's alive, we assume it's forbidden until you know it was properly slaughtered. Now, if you don't check the simanim, then you don't know it was properly slaughtered. So, Mar Saval, so one of them holds, and this is the Braita, Bechezkat, now what did the Braita say? Neveila. Why neveila? Bechezkat isur kaima, so it's still forbidden. V'hashta meitahiv, until you know it's slaughtered properly, you just consider it dead, and dead is a neveila, and therefore it carries impurity. Umar Saval, but this Rabbi Eliezer, Ben Antukinus holds, Bechezkat isur amrina, bechezkat tumalo amrina. Rav Huna said it's bechezkat isur. He never said, right, forbidden to eat. He never said it's impure. So we don't think that this applies, right? Rabbi Eliezer doesn't think that this would apply to say it's impure. Now, because we got here because of Shmuel, who said you have to check the simanim, and then we brought this statement, right, that basically shows that, okay, and that's if you didn't check the simanim, then what's the status? Is it a treifa? Is it neveila? Okay, we brought this statement of Rav Huna to say that's where it comes from, and the question is just how far to take him, also to impurity or not. But then we're going to focus right now on the second line of what he says, which wasn't really relevant to our sugya. So we're going to do a gufa where we quote again what he said. Amar Rav Huna, be'ema b'chaya b'chezkat isur omedet, ad shivada lecha b'men shechita. Nishchita b'chezkat heter omedet, ad shivada lecha b'men treifa. Okay, so that's the line. Now they say, wait a minute, this could have been worded much differently. Why did they say once it's slaughtered, it's bechezkat heter, you have a chazaka, we make an assumption that this is going to be presumption of your status quo. You're going to stay kosher until we find out it was a treifa. Why don't you just say once it's slaughtered, it's permitted? And it's once you know it's slaughtered properly. The beginning part was until you know it's slaughtered properly, it's forbidden. Once you know it's slaughtered properly, it's permitted. Why do you have to add this? Well, it's good until you find out that it's a treifa. What did that add? So v'lema, why don't you say nishchita hutra? So they say hakamash on this one. This was to come and teach you. Even if you have some sort of issue, like some sort of doubt comes up, we're not going to be strict. We're going to assume presumption of permissibility here. Okay, now they're going to bring a case where they asked a question of Rav Huna, Rabbi Abba asked, similar to it, Yale Barei Huta. They're going to give you an example, and he was lenient, and that's basically what they want to prove to you. That's what this is teaching you, just like you see. Kid Ba'amine, just like they asked, Rabbi Abba asked, Ba'amine Rabbi Abba, me Rav Huna. Just like Rabbi Abba asked Rav Huna was lenient. And then the whole Amud Bet is going to be dealing with this opinion of Rav Huna. Ba'ze'ev v'natal b'nei me'ayim. If a ze'ev came along and took the innards of the animal away, what's the halacha? Do we assume it's a treifa or not? The Gemara says, what kind of a ridiculous question? Natal halitnehu. If he took the innards, of course, what are we worried about? We have no idea what's going on with them. They're not in front of us. Why should we be worried about anything? It was slaughtered properly. You need some sort of doubt that it was a treifa. Just because a wolf came and took the innards doesn't mean there was something wrong with them. Ela nakav b'nei me'ayim mahu. No, what we're asking is, what if the wolf, when the wolf came, he ate away and made a hole in the innards? Do you say it's a treifa? Now that's a ridiculous question also, because it didn't have a hole before when it was in the animal, so it means the animal was fine. We slaughtered the animal, then the wolf came and ate it. What should that have to do with the animal being a treifa? What's a treifa? The animal was sick beforehand. So they say, Nekev hakachazina and hanikvinu. What do you mean? You just saw that the wolf put the holes in the animal's innards. Obviously, it's not a treifa. So they say, no, this is the question. Okay, so this is the third attempt to ask the question. If he took the innards and returned them with a hole in them, Okay, we didn't see what they looked like before, but when he returns them, okay, the wolf came, took the innards, right, left, came back, dropped the innards on the floor. And now the innards have a hole in them. Now, why is this a reyuta? A reyuta is, there's something that leads us to think there's an issue here. Well, mahu, michashinan bimkom nekev nakav o lo. Are we worried? Okay, let's take a little kid. A little kid has a tear in their shirt. What do they usually do? They just keep pulling because it's fun, right? There's a hole, and let's pull where there's a hole. So maybe the animal came and made a hole where there was already a hole. So maybe you have to worry about that. Comes Rav Huna. Now we know already. What did we say? We're bringing this in as an example of even if there's a reyuta, you don't have to worry about it. So Amarle, en choshashim bimkom nekev nakav. You're not worried that that's what happened, that he tore the animal where there was already a hole. We're not worried about it. Okay, that seems very straight and simple, very clear. However, I'm going to ask to raise a difficulty on this theory of Rav Huna that he said that we're not worried about this. And we're going to show some other case where we are worried about this, but a completely different case, and then we're going to have to differentiate between the cases. Eitibei, ra'at sipur haminakel. If you see a bird pecking, okay, and eating in a te'ena, in a fig, or an achbal haminaker bavatichin, or you have a mouse eating through a watermelon. Okay, so they're basically pecking holes in the food. Turning now to Amabet, choshashim, we're concerned, shema b'mkom nekev nakav. Maybe there was a hole in there before. So what? What's the hole in the food? This has nothing to do with the treifa. Well, the concern is, Rashi tells us, shema b'mkom nekev shal nachash nakav. Maybe it was a hole of a snake. Now, if a snake went in there, remember there's the venom of the snake that's very poisonous. You have to worry about leaving water out overnight, that maybe the snake came in and put its venom in, and you shouldn't eat it because it's dangerous. Here we have a halacha that protects people from something dangerous. So we say, if you see the animal, the bird or the mouse eating through the food, you have to worry that maybe a snake already went in there in the first place, and they're just going into a hole that was already made by the snake. So here you see, we are worried. Shem b'mkom nekev nakav. Maybe where the hole was, that's where he's eating at. So Amar Le, Rav Huna says, why are you asking me a question about this? Mikamidamit isur l'sakanta? Sakana shane. He says, why are you comparing Isser, the world, and this is a very interesting topic, the world of Isser v'heter, what's forbidden, what's permitted. So yeah, sometimes we're stringent, but we don't always have to be stringent. But when it comes to life and death, we have to be stringent. If you're worried that a snake ate in it, there's some sort of doubt. We'd rather just say, okay, I just won't eat it. It's not worth dying. So the halacha is going to tell you, it's not just you, it's the halacha saying, don't eat it because I don't want people to die. So that sounds reasonable. But Rava doesn't love this distinction. And Rava says, Amarle Rava, ma'ishna safek sakanta l'chumra, safek yisur nami l'chumra. Safek sakana is we go the chumra, we're stringent. Why don't we be stringent when it comes to safek yisura? We should say the same thing. Right? If you're not sure if you're committing, right, there's a halachic problem here, shouldn't we just avoid it? Right? Maybe the wolf did eat where there was a hole, and then maybe the animal's a treifa. Why don't we just say throw out the animal? Right? So don't eat it or give it to your non-Jewish friend. So Amarle Abaye. So now here comes the counter. Abaye is going to try to support Rav Huna and say, no, I'm going to prove that there's this distinction, like Rav Huna said. Okay, Rava tried to say, why would you make that distinction? We should be stringent also in the world of Isser v'heter. Right? So Abaye says, Velo shani bein Yisrael l'sakanta. What do you mean? Of course we differentiate. I'm going to give you an example. Ilu safek tuma b'reshut harabim sfekot tahor. If you have a case of safek impurity, like somebody walked through a public area and we're not sure if he touched something or not, you have to worry that the impure person touched it, right? If it's in public, you don't have to worry about it. If there was a case, okay, it's not just so he walked through, but there's a real reason to think maybe, you're not sure, maybe it was touched by the person, maybe it wasn't. So you're in public, we're going to be lenient. In private, we're going to be strict. But in public, we're going to be lenient. And ilu safek, they're not really talking about the private here, but in the public domain, we're going to be lenient. Ilu safek mayim megulin asurim. But if there's water that we're not sure if it was left open overnight, we're strict. So here you see clear distinction. Rava says, no, I don't buy that distinction. I mean, yes, you're right, but that distinction is based on what we call exerat katuv. It's based on like how to learn something from the Torah, and it's a unique halacha specifically by impurity. And we can't use this as a general rule to differentiate between Isser and Sakana and danger. Amarle. So Rava says, how do I know this? There it's a tradition that we learn this from Sota Misota. Where do we get this thing that in Reshut Yachid it's going to be in a private domain, we're going to be strict. In a public domain, we're going to be lenient because that's exactly what happens with a woman who's a Sota. What's the problem? The woman was talking to a man, the husband didn't like it, he warned her, and then she goes anyway and she goes into a room alone with him. And if she goes into a room alone and we have witnesses she was in a room alone, we're worried that something transpired there. But we're not worried if she was in public that something transpired there. So, sotab, now the sota, by the way, what does it have to do with impurity? Well, the sota is called im nitma'a, im lo nitma'a. The way they say, if something transpired there or not is did she cause herself to be defiled, impure, okay, or not? So they say, from there we're going to learn to laws of impurity in general. The sota is only an issue in a private domain. If she's in a private domain alone with that man, also tumah is only a problem in a private domain. And that's why we're lenient in a public domain, because it all comes from sota, but that teaches us nothing about lenient, strict, stringent, not at all. Mativ Rav Shimi. Now Rav Shimi comes and asks a question on Rava. Rava was trying to say, let's just remember, Rav Huna differentiated. Abaye brought a proof for Rav Huna, which didn't really work, from the sota. Rava tried to say, there's no reason to differentiate. If we're going to be strict there, we should be strict also, not just in life and death things, but also in isurim, in prohibitions. And now Rav Shimi is going to question Rava. Look at this case. It's a Mishnah in Tarot. Sheretz befi chulda. There's a sheretz, which is matame, in the mouth of a chulda. Now, a chulda is alive, so it's not matame. A sheretz is only a dead creature. So a dead creature is in the mouth of a chulda. Now, if the sheretz touches something, it will make it impure. If it touches food, okay? In our case, it's going to be truma. But now we have a case of safek. The sheretz is in the mouth of the chulda, and the chulda mahalechet al gabei kikarot shel truma, right? The chulda is like a mole. The mole has the sheretz in its mouth, walks on top of loaves of truma. Safek naga, safek lo naga. Now we don't know, did the sheretz touch the bread or not? Sfekot tahor. Okay, the safek is, right, we say it's tahor. We're not going to say the bread's impure. So here again, you have a problem with Rava, because in other words, this is going to say there's a reason to differentiate. We have one case we're going to be lenient, that's isurim. Okay, was it tamei or not, right? Tamei tahor comes in the world of isur v'heter, permitted and forbidden. And when it comes to the mayim migulim, the revealed water that we left overnight, or we're not sure was it left overnight or not, we're going to be stringent about it. That's because it's light, right? It's dangerous. So hatam nami, they say no. That's, again, it's the same thing. This is, again, before it was Rava was rejecting Abaye based on this, but now the question against Rava, he's going to answer like this, and he's going to say, no, what are you talking about? Hatam nami hilchata gemira lami sota. This was also learned from sota. Ma sota davar sheyesh badat lishael. Afachanami davar sheyesh bodat lishael. Only going to be severe, strict, in a case where you can ask the person. Meaning, in a sota case, you can ask her, did you sleep with the man, did you not? Or you can ask the man. There's someone to talk to here. Only when there's someone to talk to, like if a person walked through and we don't know did they touch it or not. So if you can ask him, then we're going to put it into these rules, right? If it was shidei, we're going to be strict. But if you can't ask, like the chulda won't answer you. Now, of course, the woman's not going to necessarily answer you. The point is that's that potential that it was a human that we could have asked them. If the chulda, we don't know if the chulda had the sheretz, right? If the sheretz in the mouth of the chulda was touching or not. We can't ask the sheretz, it's dead. We can't ask the chulda, it's a chulda, right? It's a mole, doesn't have a voice. So that's why, in order for us to say we're going to be strict, it has to be really like the sota. So one was the private domain, and the other is you have to be able to ask ask someone. And that's why this has nothing to do with general rules, though. This is all, once we say it's learned from sota, we say it's a very unique halacha, the whole tumah. Okay, the laws regarding impurity are very uniquely learned from sota, and we can't learn from them to anywhere else. So in the end, we don't really have proofs either which way. Should we, right? Rav Huna said we distinguish, and we'll be strict when it comes to the sakana, but we're not going to be stringent about maybe there was the wolf is eating where there was already a hole and make the animal a treifa, and that all goes back to that line that we had before about once it's slaughtered properly, we're not worried it's a treifa until it's proven. Now we're going to start with a proof, but we're not going to really understand how this is a proof yet today, but we're going to start with Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi is going to try to prove Rav Huna, who really does distinguish, and we're not worried about a nekev in a case like our case we saw before, in a case of a treifa. So Tashma, let's learn from here. It's a Mishnah Masechet Para, and it's talking about tzluchit, a bowl with water in it, the water for the para aduma, which has to be kept pure Okay, shehinicha megule. Now you left it uncovered. When you came back, it was covered. Tme'ah. We're going to rule this as it's impure. Why? Shani omel. Adam tamei nichnas l'sham v'kisa, because we can assume that it very likely was covered by an impure person. And we have to make that assumption and say it's impure. However, in the reverse case, if you left it covered, and you came back and it was open, uncovered, if either a cholda could have drunk from it, if like there was a way for the mole to get in and drink it, or a snake could have gotten in, okay, Rashi helps us out here, and Rashi says, shratzim, all shratzim, if they drink paraduma waters, there's nothing wrong with it. But a cholda and a snake, according to Rabban Gamliel, there's machloket about the snake. There's a concern that they spit into it, and when they spit into it, it's going to ruin it. Because there are creatures that spit things out of their mouths. So if they went in, okay, if they could have gotten in, if there was potential, o she'ara batal balayla, or dew fell at night, because this was you come in the morning, I guess, and you find it. Like this, if the dew fell at night, now dew can ruin paraduma waters. Why? It has to be fresh water. And dew is not considered mayim chayim. It has to be mayim chayim, like from a stream. And dew is not that. So, psula, we're going to say it's disqualified. However, Rashi points out, what does it mean disqualified as opposed to the previous case? The previous case, we said it was tume'ah. It was impure. This is not impure. Okay? And then we're going to see what the reason is for this. Okay? We're going to explain this Mishnah a lot better, and figure out what its connection is in the next stuff. Okay, but this is going to ultimately prove Rav Huna, who differentiates between a case of danger, and we're going to be lenient. That's why we're lenient here. We're not saying it's tamei in a case where it's not danger but isur. Okay, and we'll get back to you and we'll understand this proof in tomorrow's shiur. So what did we do today? We have Rav Yehuda in the name of Rav about the Talmid Chacham needs to learn these three things, and then we had someone else say in the name of Rav a different three things, right? An additional three things. And then we had the statement of Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel, that a tabach who doesn't know shechita can't do shechita. And then we had the statement of Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel, that if you slaughter, you have to check the simanim, that it was done properly. Rav Yosef tried to prove from Mishnah. It was unsuccessful. Then we said that then we said, what if you didn't check? And that's how we got off on a complete tangent. What if you didn't check? And then either it's a neveila or it's a treifa. And that was all proven from the first line of that statement about if the animal is bechizkat, not kasher, right, until it's proven that the slaughter was done properly. So without checking, it's going to be a problem. That was Rav Huna's statement. And then we just differentiated between, well, is it forbidden or is it also carry impurity? Then we dealt with the second line, which was about the shechita, that once it was slaughtered, we assume it's okay until proven otherwise. And then Rav Huna explained, right, based on this question that they asked Rav Huna about the ze'ev who took the thing and brought it back, and we're not worried the place where the hole is, right? So why it shows that even though there's concern, we're really not concerned about it. Then we got into a whole thing. Why not? What about a case where we are concerned? And that was danger, and then we differentiate danger and not. And Abaye tried to prove that, but Rava said, I don't know why you would distinguish. We should be machmir in both cases. However, we end up right now, in the words of Rav Ashi, trying to prove Rav Huna that we do differentiate. And with that, we finish for today. Wishing everyone a good day and a Shabbat Shalom and Shavua Tov.